Hello and welcome to this review. This is Human Anatomy 1. Sample paper for the September 2023. Question 1. Anatomical position. In anatomical position, the subject is standing. Yeah, the best option is A. That is it'll be in erect position, facing the observer. Feet will be slightly apart. Palms will be facing forward. You can also follow this link to get all the characteristics of the anatomical position. Human placenta is derived from if you look at the amnion, this is the membrane that surrounds the fetus, forming the amniotic sac. While the allantois, this one that is the one that normally contributes to the development of the umbilical cord. So the best option for us is option B. How many bones does an adult skeleton have? Two or six. I think this is common knowledge for all the anatomy students. The ectoderm differentiates to form the. If you look at the cardiovascular system, this is majorly derived from the mesoderm, respiratory tract derived from the endoderm, connective tissue is majorly derived from the mesoderm. So option B is the best option. A chromosomal abnormality syndrome characterized by a portion of one number, that is chromosome number 5 part is missing, while the other number 5 chromosome is normal. Is which condition? Of course, we know Down syndrome is caused by trisomy, where there are 3 copies of chromosome 21 instead of 2. Klinefelter syndrome, this occurs in males who have an extra X chromosome, so they have XXY formulation, and this leads to symptoms like infertility, learning disabilities, and physical differences. While Turner syndrome occurs in females who only have one X chromosome, so they have the 45 instead of 46 chromosome. So Cry-Duchat syndrome is what is being described here. When differentiating the sex of female and the males using the bar bodies, females are characterized by females have small dark bar bodies present in their nuclei. This will be absent in males. Birth defects can be detected using a method called chronic villus sampling by collecting embryonic cells as early as, I think the earliest we can do the fifth week. Which of the following parts of the blastocyst combine to form the chorionic cavity? Alright, so we are looking at probably B could be a distractor. Remember, the chorionic cavity is also known as the extra embryonic column, right? B could be the distractor, but you have to understand that the cytotrophoblast and the epiblast, they normally form the amniotic cavity. And option C and D has the syncytiotrophoblast. Syncytiotrophoblast is involved in the implantation and formation of the placenta. So that makes C and D wrong. The best option is cytotrophoblast, and the hypoblast are the ones that are involved in the formation of the chorionic cavity. Gastrointestinal tract originates from which primary germ layers? Ectoderm, we know it's involved with the skin, the nervous system, and the sensory organs. Mesoderm normally gives rise to muscles, the bones, the skeletal system, and the kidneys. All the primary germ layers, of course, we know they contribute to different organs and system. But when you are trying to refer to the gastrointestinal tract, this one specifically originates from the endoderm. Which of the following layers of this epidermis will be absent in thin skin? Stratum basale, we know, is the deepest layer of the epidermis, and it's where new skin cells are generated. This one will be found present in both the thin and the thick skin. Stratum cornea is the outermost layer that is normally composed of dead, flattened skin cells. Stratum granulosum is involved in the production of keratin, and it's found in both thin and thick skin. Of course, stratum lucidum is the best option for us here, and it's a clear layer that is found only in thick skin, such as the palms of your hands and soles of your feet. In thin skin, it's found most on most of the body. And you find that this layer will be absent in the thin skin. That makes up the structural framework of the cell. The cytoskeleton, of course, this is a network of protein filaments and tubules that provide shape and support and do facilitate the movement within a cell. Which of the following type of cartilage is present at joints of long bones in humans? Fibrous, this one is found in areas that require high tensile strength, such as the intervertebral discs, the pubic symphysis, and the knee meniscus. Elastic, this one is the most flexible and is found in structures like external pinna, the auricle, the epiglottis, and the eustachian tube. The best option here is hyaline cartilage, and that's the correct answer. It covers the ends of bones in synovial joints and provides a smooth surface for the movement and reducing friction between bones. Which of the following is the structural and the functional unit of the human nervous system? Neuron is the structural and the functional unit of the nervous system. During which phase is the individual chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell? Metaphase. This is where individual chromosomes will be lining up in the middle of the cell along an imaginary plane that is normal, that we refer to it as the metaphyseal or metaphase plate. Remember, in prophase, chromosomes are condensing and becoming visible, and the nuclear envelope begins to break. The spindle fibers start to form, but chromosomes are yet to be aligned in the middle. Anaphase is a stage where sister chromatids separate and are pulled towards opposite poles of the cell. This occurs after the chromosomes have already aligned in the metaphase. Telophase, this is where the separated chromatids reach the opposite poles of the cell and the nuclear envelope reforms around each set of chromosomes. Glands that secrete substances with no actual loss of material are, well, those are merocrine glands. They secrete substances without any actual loss of cellular material. Secretory products is released via exocytosis, so the glands cells remain intact. Apocrine glands, as we know, they have their secretions coming out along with a portion of the cell cytoplasm as the apical part of the cell pinches off. This process involves loss of cellular material, so it does not answer our question. Holocrine glands, they release their secretions by rupturing and disintegrating entire cells, leading to a complete loss of cellular material. So the sebaceous glands are examples of the holocrine glands, right? Production of antibodies is the function of, well, plasma cells. Plasma cells are normally derived from B lymphocytes and are specialized for synthesizing and secreting antibodies as part of the adaptive response. We also have the other options like fat cells. Of course, fat cells are also referred to as adipocytes. This one, they store energy in the form of lipids and are not involved in the production of antibodies. Fibroblasts are responsible for producing and maintaining the extracellular matrix components like collagen, elastin, and this contributes to tissue repair and structural integrity. Histiocytes, these are tissue-resident macrophages that are involved in phagocytosis and immune surveillance. In which of these locations will the pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium intermixed with goblet cells be found? Of course, we expect to find them along the lining of the nasal cavity and the trachea. Remember, pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium intermixed with goblet cells, and here find cilia normally helps to move the mucus that is produced by the goblet cells and also trap particles out of the airways. For the lining of the blood vessels, we expect simple squamous epithelium, that's the endothelium, that is meant to facilitate smooth blood flow and minimize friction. As for the lining of the serous membrane, we expect to see simple squamous epithelium, that is the mesothelium, which will secrete serous fluid to reduce friction between organs. And lastly, for the lining of the small intestines, we expect simple columnar epithelium with macrovilli for absorption, along with goblet cells for the mucus secretions, but without cilia. The volume of amniotic fluid after 20 weeks gestation is, after 20 weeks, we expect about 500 to 1000 mils. Remember that 350 to 500, this may indicate oligohydramnios. This is low amniotic fluid at 20th week. Same to 200 to 500. This may indicate very low volume and potentially fetal growth concerns. While 1000 to 1500, that might suggest polyhydramnios, that is excessive amniotic fluid. Which type of white blood cells release histamine during anaphylactic reactions? Basophils, along with mast cells, are the ones responsible for releasing histamine during allergic and anaphylactic reactions. Eosinophils, on the other hand, are important in managing inflammation and combating parasites than triggering acute allergic reactions. Lymphocytes, they recognize and mount a targeted immune response, while neutrophils their main role is to attack phagocytes directly and not releasing histamine. Implantation is usually complete by day. Well, at day 8, the blastocyst has just burrowed into the endometrium, and we expect the blastocyst to be completely embedded by day 9. Remember, day 10 is where the growth of the trophoblast is much quicker than the bilaminar embryonic disc. And day 11, we have lacuna beginning to form in the syncytial trophoblast as it continues to expand in order to establish that uteroplacental circulation. So these were some of the short answer questions. The first one was with an aid of a label diagram. You describe the process of mitosis. Remember, mitosis is the process of cell division that results into two genetically identical daughter cells. This process is essential for growth, development, and tissue repair. Mitosis consists of several stages. We have prophase, which is characterized by chromosomes condensing, nuclear envelope breaking down. Then mitosis, the metaphase, where chromosomes align at the center, the metaphyseal plate. Then anaphase, where chromatids are going to separate and move to opposite poles. Telophase, where chromosomes will decondense and nuclear envelope reforms. And lastly, cytokinesis, which is the actual division of the cytoplasm. So the difference between capacitations and acrosomal reaction, and we all know that these are critical processes that do prepare sperm for fertilization and enable it to penetrate the ovum. So capacitation is the initial phase that occurs in the female reproductive tract, primarily within the uterus and the fallopian tubes. During this process, the sperm normally undergoes biochemical changes that increases its motility, its membrane fluidity, making it capable to binding to an egg. So this process is preparatory and takes place before the sperm encounters the egg. So it helps at least cross the corona radiator. In contrast, a chromosomal reaction occurs when capacitated sperm reaches the ovum and contacts the zona pellucida, that is the outer protective layer surrounding the egg. This reaction involves the release of enzymes from the acrosome. This is a cup-like structure over the sperm's head, which helps the sperm digest and penetrate the zona pellucida. The acrosomal reaction is essential for allowing the sperm to enter the ovum and achieve fertilization, occurring only after capacitation has prepared the cell to this final step. Describe NA2 syndrome caused by acrosomal abnormalities. We have several. You could talk of the Cry-Duchat syndrome, the Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, or the Patu syndrome, which is also the trisomy 13. State 4 methods of estimating the age of an embryo. We have several. You could use the day of the last menstrual period, like the LMP. So you are using the Nigis rules to estimate the due date, that is the EDD. You could also use the estimated time of fertilization or conception, because knowing the date of conception can be very important in tracking the evolution in reproduction health. You could also do the ultrasound measurements, measure the parietal diameter, the length of lymph buds, and so many others. Describe the process of chromosomes in chromosomal inheritance. The process of chromosomal inheritance involves the transmission of genetic material from parents to offsprings through chromosomes, which do carry genes that determine an individual's characteristics. This process is explained by the Mendelian inheritance principles and includes meiosis, fertilization, and genetic recombination. So these are the factors and the areas that you need to focus on. State the types of tissues and indicate where they are found in the human body. As you know, the human body is composed of 4 major types of tissues, each with distinct structures and functions. So this could include epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and the nervous tissue. State the cells found in the epidermis and the functions of each cell. Of course, the epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin and consists of several types of cells, each with specific functions. You could mention the keratinocytes, the melanocytes, the Langerhans cells, or also the dendritic cells, and lastly, the Meckel cells. State types of muscle tissue and indicate where they are found in the human body. The 3 main types of muscle tissue in the human body include the skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and the smooth muscle. So for the long answer questions, we had 2 questions. Number 1 is epithelial tissue consists of cells which are named based on various factors. Outline the criteria used to name epithelial cells. Use an example in each case. So we could talk of the classification based on cell shape, where you talk of the squamous, which are flat and thin, resembling scales. Talk of the cuboidal, which are cells, which are the cubed shaped cells. with roughly equal dimensions, and they are often found in glands, ducts, do aid secretions and absorption. Talk of columnar cells, which are normally tall and column-like. The cells often line organs involved in absorption and secretions. We also talk of classification based on cell layers, where you talk of simple epithelium, stratified epithelium, pseudostratified epithelium. Talk of classification based on special cells features like the ciliated epithelium, keratinized epithelium, microvilli. We'll also talk of the transitional epithelium, which is found in organs that can stretch and they can change shape depending on the degree of the distension. The last question was the nurse Ben is assigned to a patient who is bedridden with a medical diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. So you are being requested to describe 10 anatomical movements nurse Ben will assist the patient perform on the upper limb. So you could talk of the body movements, talk of like flexion, where nurse Ben can assist the patient in flexing the elbow by bringing the forearm towards the upper arm. Talk of extension, where nurse Ben can help extend the patient's elbow by moving the forearm away from the upper arm. Talk of abduction, where nurse Ben can also assist in shoulder abduction by moving the patient's arm away from the body laterally. Abduction, where the shoulder abduction can be done by bringing the upper arm back to the body. Internal, that is medial rotation, where we can assist the patient with internal rotation by gently turning the patient's arm inward at the shoulder. We could also do external or lateral rotation. We help the patient rotate the patient's arm outward the shoulder joint. Pronation, where we can assist the forearm pronation by gently turning the patient's palm down. Supination, where we can support the forearm and assist with supination, turning the patient's palm up. And we can also help by gently moving the patient's wrist towards the forearm, that is wrist flexion. And lastly, we have wrist extension. Remember, straightening the wrist so that the back of the hand moves away from the forearm. So we can assist with wrist extension by moving the hand away from the forearm. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the end of the presentation on that past paper.